Hello and welcome to the Sikkim podcast brought to you by Sikkim
Go.
I'm Pema Wangchuk,
I'm Chiring Eden.
and as we begin another episode, this is something I wanted to share. We are the shining example of reverse nepotism, in which we are roping in all our children and our friends and taking favors from them.
To make this podcast happen, huh?
To make this possible, yes. So, and soon we'll be plugging our products as well, things that we have worked on. So,
and we are also, if you have noticed in the past few episodes, we have been switching the venue of our podcast. And that is because we want to bring in some freshness to every episode with new venues. And so that is something to look forward to, I think, for people. They'll be like, I think we'll soon start a guessing game where, they'll have to say, guess where we are.
I guess it's also a message out to all our friends, since only friends are watching us right now, that they should prepare to receive messages and requests from us that how about we come and shoot at your place next. Anyways, on that note, should we begin
with the local news?
Yeah, there's not much that has, there is not staggeringly lot of stuff happening that has happened this past week, has it?
I don't think so. But there has been the major announcements made by the Chief Minister of Sikkim, Mr. P.S. Tamang, for taxi drivers.
Oh yeah, we had the Sarathi Diwas. Sikkim has this annual event which has been going on for about 3 years, maybe 3-4 years.
Since the SKM government.
The SKM government started this. This is called the Sarathi Diwas, and which, as the name suggests, is a day dedicated to drivers. It used to be Chalak Diwas. The first edition of it, first edition was Chalak Diwas. Then they changed it to Sarathi. Do you know why they changed it to Sarathi?
I have no idea.
Because Chalak, when you spell it in English,
Chalak,
it sounds almost like
that
Chalak.
That is his theory. We don't have any proof, because that's why they changed it.
There is none. No, Sarathi is a much more dramatic and grander sounding name than Chalak.
But then,
Guruji is what they are called. I like that about
drivers.
I don't know why that is the case. Why drivers are called Gurujis in Sikkim?
In
the region, but they are called Gurujis. Since all of them would be teaching you how to drive. Apart from that, I don't know.
I think it is teaching. Maybe it started with that, teaching. Mostly, it is. That's how I think the driver community grows, right? One driver
Which
teaches.
is also probably explained why such bad drivers
used to grow. Now you have driving schools, but earlier we didn't have driving schools, so it was one driver teaching another one how to drive. So I guess that's. We're just guessing. Yeah. But I wanted to ask: is it just Sarathi? Is it just drivers? Or is it just taxi drivers?
No, it's drivers. The government drivers also get included in it. And technically anyone who drives should be included, but it's primarily people who drive for as a profession, right? So taxi drivers and of course government drivers and truck drivers and bus drivers, things like that. So all of them, and there are awards, and it's an important day. Why do you have the announcements? They're very interesting.
Yeah, I did not. Okay, the first one.
Yeah.
Or you want to go?
No. I have a lot to say about the first one. So let's just hear what the first big announcement is.
The first one is the reduction in the pollution challan, the fine for
what is PUC? Pollution
under control.
Such a dramatic name. Pollution PUC certificate, pollution under control certificate. Yes.
Yeah, even I have some stuff to say.
So that has earlier, if your vehicle did not have the PUC certificate, the fine had been increased to 10,000 rupees, which is I want the pollution, I want the environment to be saved, but I don't know whether I want to pay 10,000 rupees.
But then it worked. I feel the people were
it didn't
scared.
work. I think when they announced it, do you remember how inconvenient it was when they announced it? Suddenly everyone realized that their certificates had failed. And it was not so much, if you also remember, it is not so much that your pollution certificates had failed or the fine was so much. It was because they had started this whole AI business at some traffic points. They had these cameras which would read your registration plate number, and then check whether your documents were up to date or not, and on your
That
phones you would get the challan,
Yeah.
which back of the boondocks like Sikkim, we kind of were not used to it. I know that in other parts of the country they already have the system in place, so you would receive a challan, and that is what.
No, but that is different.
everyone.
What I was saying is that even before the AI stuff and all that,
Yeah.
just the thing that you had to, if you did not have a pollution, as they say, pollution certificate, you would have to pay 10,000.
So wonderful. Calling it a pollution certificate, not pollution under control.
Yeah.
Outside.
So what I was saying is that 10,000 is also a big amount, and then
Yes.
when you forget about the AI and all that. I'm saying even me, I drive, so I know that okay, I don't want to pay 10,000 if I'm caught without a. Even though I don't think that we all know that pollution. I mean, we all know we don't know, but we at least two of us assume that the pollution checking thing does not work. The pollution checking system is like probably bogus, but still just having the certificate, I'm saying at least the 10,000 fine pushed people to go and get the certificate is
But
my thing. Whether it works or not, whether the pollution certificate is genuine or not is another question, is my point.
No, I don't doubt the genuineness of the testing.
Really?
Yeah, no.
You're being politically correct.
No, I'm not being politically correct. This whole thing that we had about this being suspect was when I had this really beaten up car whose exhaust pump had holes in it, and the portion of the exhaust pump sticking out of the back of the car was not the smoke from the engine was not reaching there. It was just leaking out midway.
There was a gap.
And I went and got a pollution check done, and it came out with glowing colors because, of course, there was no exhaust in the exhaust pump. Anyways, that besides that, I think a lot of the new vehicles have the pollution under control, right? The exhaust. So the only people who benefit is not so much the environment or the bringing the pollution under control. It is more the government revenue.
The vendors.
Not the vendors also. It's a revenue. And of course, whoever is carrying out those tests for you. So that is like kind of the motivation behind it is suspect. My point is that when the government brings it down from 10,000 to 500, it brings the whole thing into question about why was it 10,000 in the first place, right? If you can, which means that the government is admitting it is too much. Now, to be fair to the rule, it says when you get caught with an expired certificate, you will be fined. What was it? 500.
Yeah, 500.
500. And then within 15 days, you have to get your certificate done. Otherwise, you will have to pay a fine of 10,000.
Okay.
Right? The logistical challenges of doing something like that are huge. Forget that. My point is more at a policy level. If the government is admitting that 10,000 fine was too much and hence we are giving people this relaxation, then why is it not just 500? Why is it 10,000, the fine?
Basically the rationale behind both the fines, like earlier being 10,000, we don't know.
It is still 10,000.
No, I'm saying earlier when there was no this 15-day thing.
Yeah, when you didn't get
the old law, the old rule, was there any reason behind it? Was there any rationale behind it? We don't know. They don't really
exactly. They never explained why it should be so high. Why should it be like 10,000? Like, is it because the government wants to make sure that our papers are up to date, or is it because the government wants to bring pollution under check? Because I don't think any government in India, whether state or center, really bothers about pollution or the environment. So it is revenue. So that is not explained. That is my problem with this whole thing. It is wonderful that if I get caught, I forget to get my certificate renewed and I pay only 500 and then I can get it renewed. That is wonderful.
I think when there was this whole bunch, when the center passed this rule, traffic
rules.
thing.
Yeah,
so that was the time they hiked it to 10,000 and various other fines also.
I mean, that is the time when we saw these viral images of people setting their bikes on fire instead, like telling the cops, you take my bike, I don't want to pay the fine, like 25,000 rupees fine for a 10-year-old bike. Why will I pay that?
So that time I think it was just like it was like a crackdown, like you have to now.
Is the government just desperate to raise revenue? I think
the center at that time.
It's decided. started with the center, and then everyone plays along because the state raises that fine, right, at the state level. So it's just, yeah, so this, I think, in an indirect way, the government is admitting that garbad nahi kar diya, but like we were wrong in asking for so much fine.
But
Now, if my point is, if they reduce the PUC fine to 500 and given you a 15-day thing, why is that not across the board? Why are all the other fines also not reduced to a nominal penalty and then given this cushion time for people to get their documents up to date, whatever else?
But I wonder why, actually.
Because one is the pollution under control certificate is, we both drive, we both have vehicles, is something that you forget every time. You invariably forget to get it renewed. Like, it's not something, and it's a hassle, right? You have to go, take your car, wait in line. One day you miss it, then again. So it's something that you forget a lot, and to pay a penalty such a high penalty for it is, so a lot of complaints, right? A lot of people had complaints about it. So those being the point. What were the other things they did?
The other announcements. Yeah. The other announcement, one announcement is the insurance. I think insurance cover for drivers.
Good. Yeah, which will be done through their welfare board. Sarathi welfare board, right?
Yeah.
So that's a nice thing. Yeah, that's a nice thing. Again, I hope they do it well, because there will be a lot of insurance companies that will love this, love to take up this client, right? Do this bulk insurance. I hope they do it well. I hope they get a good policy in place and the premiums are worked out well.
Because remember that health insurance thing, the government employees health insurance scheme that
which could never take off, never could take off, which was like a lot of other things.
Scam.
It wasn't. I don't think it was a scam. I think it was
government was scammed.
Government was scammed. It's very possible. As an idea, it was very nice.
Yeah.
As an idea, it was very nice. In implementation, it's rarely that governments do anything right, so I was not surprised.
So I don't know, like, even I have forgotten the details, but I think some years back, I'm sure a lot of the viewers might remember, there was this announcement of a health insurance, I think. No, was it life insurance? Health insurance scheme for government employees by the government, and it was like too good to be true, I think. But the employees had to put in a certain percentage, and the rest would be put in by the government. Yeah. And then after a few months, there was no talk of it.
And to be fair to our viewers, next week we'll come back with more details on this particular scam that she teased, and talk about that as well.
It was actually a planned
And if there was none, and if there was no scam, we'll probably have to come on camera and say, okay, I mean, we kind of, I dreamt that.
I know.
Yeah, what else?
And and also, when you talk about insurance, this insurance for the Sarathis, so they have said some documents, you submit the necessary documents, as they say. So we don't know. So this is going to be just for local Sarathis, right?
No. No. See, this is the interesting part. So since it will be done through the welfare board and not a government department, it's not a government scheme, right? The government is getting an independent drivers welfare board to coordinate this whole insurance scheme, which means that they are not tied down by these rules of Sikkim subject certificates, COIs and things like that. They could just give it to all professional drivers plying their trade in Sikkim, which could be drivers from anywhere. Yeah.
So how again then the identity thing comes, right? Like how do you know who's a driver?
Yeah, I mean that is something that so one is of course like to drive a commercial vehicle you need a separate kind of license, right? Okay. It's a taxi license. And then of course it's a welfare board, so you have to be registered and partnered with them and things like that. I mean those are logistics that the welfare board will have to look into. Something like this, when they're actually offering their members something concrete, is when organizations can either become very good and efficient or just become these houses to dish out favors. I hope it is the former.
That's right.
I hope that now that they are, because otherwise what was happening, like if you were a driver's Sarathi welfare board, all you were getting is like a VIP status kind of thing, right? What were the drivers getting out of it by becoming members? Now they're getting something concrete, right? So I hope this makes the organization, the board, much more professional in how they look out at the interests of the drivers. That will be my hope. Yeah.
Another contentious announcement is the Sikkim Cab App. Was it? Sikkim
it is
Cab
there.
App.
I've seen that app around.
Yeah. So
It's not mandatory, right?
What?
The app.
It's not mandatory, but I'm saying I don't know how efficiently it will run, because anything government, I don't know if it is going to be government.
It is government.
If it is
right?
government,
It is the Transport
then
Department.
sorry, because we have been, like the government has tried especially the electricity bills. You remember? Oh my God, this is actually it's another whole discussion where the government bills, it tried the online payment thing, and I don't think it is working. I tried it once and I don't know what happened. Hopefully it got paid. But I have heard from many people that they tried the online payment thing for electricity and then it didn't work. Then they had to go to the office and run around and figure out why the online payment did not happen, and then they had to all of that.
Those are payments. See, the Sikkim Cab App, which I really want to try out once. It's more to kind of hire cabs and make payments to them. It's not like
the payments.
It's to kind of like, if I want to book a cab to go to Siliguri, and then what is interesting about this is that it is kind of you will have empaneled drivers. So if someone is empaneled there, if I have a complaint, then you see that ecosystem that within which the business operates. Again, gives it a lot of potential. I have no idea how they're going to pull it off. I don't believe in, I don't really have much confidence in government departments being able to do these things. But in the absence of a private initiative on these lines, it would have had to be a government effort. I hope from here on it becomes more private players come in.
Yeah, so or they could, lease it out to a private.
Because the moment government is there, then even leasing out becomes an issue, because then they lease it out to their favorite guys who are not interested in doing it well, right? So anyways, let's not just shoot it before we've even tried it out.
So we are very happy that there is a Sikkim Cab app where you can just go and book a cab from
Yes, and if anyone has used it, please let us know how well or how poorly it functions.
So the other interesting announcement,
operational yet or not? I don't know.
The other interesting announcement is the Reciprocal Transport Agreement with the West Bengal government.
Yeah, which has been a problem since forever.
That's the bigger actually an issue.
But it doesn't say anything. It just says we will.
And it
renegotiate or redraft that reciprocal arrangement.
What I didn't understand is that it will be better for Sikkim. It was mentioned, right?
It will be better from how it was earlier, probably.
It will get more, it will be more beneficial. I don't know if it will be more beneficial. I mean, if it means more beneficial for Sikkim drivers compared to West Bengal drivers, or
so it means nothing actually. It's just a It's just a policy commitment saying that this reciprocal transport agreement or whatever it is that has been, which keeps surfacing every now and then between Sikkim and West Bengal, will be addressed, and that will be renegotiated. One of the problem, and this affects taxi drivers primarily. So
you'll have, for example, from Sikkim to Darjeeling, they can just drop us. The Sikkim taxi can only drop us in Darjeeling. They will not be able to take us around Darjeeling. From there, you have to hire a Darjeeling cab. So I think this is all. I'm just giving an example of what this agreement will probably entail.
So that is the case, right? Even West Bengal taxis are not allowed to take Sikkim, are not allowed to take their passengers on sightseeing within Sikkim.
Yeah.
Within Sikkim also we have that, right? Gangtok district vehicles are not entertained in Namchi and Peling. So these turf battles, I don't think this reciprocal thing will solve, because this this attitude, this turf battle is not so much between Sikkim and West Bengal governments. It is between the taxi associations and unions of different areas. So whatever reciprocal agreement they might get into, the two governments, in the end it will be very local taxi unions and associations that will still have problems with sharing their routes, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's just an announcement. I don't expect much out of it. I think very few people even understand what is at play here.
I wonder why, they keep having meetings, then they have an arrangement for some time, and then again something happens, and again, why can't they come up with one, permanent solution, as they say, for this as well? Remember,
they won't, right? Like I said, the governments won't, for the two governments, their engagement is only at the level of revenue generation, right? It is the local and very tourist spot specific taxi associations and unions that have more confusion, and it's about turf, right? So the Sikkim government will not want to appear to give up too much, as will the West Bengal side, right? So it's just status quo.
No, do you think, I don't know, is it also about power? The taxi unions have a whole lot of power, right? The driver unions, or not the driver, the taxi unions, and these syndicates, as they are called. So, do you think that the governments cannot impose a rule? They have to get them in confidence.
They are a lobby. They are a lobby. They are, since any vote bank, right? It's a group that you address together. So that's the level of their influence. So the governments can, of course, implement a lot of rules and get them to toe the line, but they don't. It's also about the incentives, right? Who will benefit if the government becomes strict or comes up with a sane arrangement? The ordinary travelers will benefit, but that's such a vague idea as far as the government is concerned, right? So they will just cater to the syndicates, as you said. So I'm not expecting anything happening there.
Yeah, all right. And the other thing is also Sikkim voter card holders being permitted to drive luxury vehicles.
There was no rule stopping
Sikkim
them.
Voter,
yeah. So I think.
Yeah.
I think what they mean is that I think they're going to make it exclusive. I don't understand this.
That's
rule.
what I also assume.
Because I think they're going to make it. You have to be a luxury car driver of a Sikkim registered luxury vehicle. You have to be a voter in Sikkim. Maybe it's that, and not that Sikkim voters can also drive. That was never stopped.
Yeah, I think
that was never an issue. Again, dictating terms of employment for the private sector is always a tricky thing, because then it becomes impractical, because the government doesn't understand how to hire its own people. How is it going to tell private people how to hire, right?
Yeah.
So whenever they enter that zone, it becomes tricky, it becomes impractical, and that is when it becomes impractical, people will be breaking the laws, and then your officers become too powerful, and then it's just another rent-seeking tool that you've given in the hands of your officers at every level. So, yeah, that one I don't really care much about. So,
and when it comes to, I think, local news, the other thing is again unending is the roads. I guess again.
Yeah, the national highway.
Yeah.
I don't know. The national highway has now been a month and a half that it has been shut. It opens for a few hours once a week, and then something comes crashing down and the road shuts down again. In winters, when there is no water, there are no landslides, it'll be so crazy. I don't know, is the highway still there when we go in winters, or it's sunk? That'll be interesting to see. And so the drive to Siliguri now is, on a good day, 7 hours, right? You have to go via Lava, which is like insanely long. What it has done, I'm shocked that there's not enough noise, not too much noise, about what it has done to supplies of provisions and in Lal Bazaar and in the markets. Why that is not being
talked about
more by the people or by political parties, or being addressed by the departments and the government, saying what are they planning to do, how are they going to subsidize the transport cost. Because if the roads are going to be shut for this long, then you have to come up with a policy to subsidize transport of provisions, since everything is coming from outside, right? That has not happened. We can see that already, right? Even within the state, the roads are in a bad shape. So I think milk supplies are already down, which also raises the question that how much of Sikkim milk comes from outside Sikkim. Milk supplies are down, vegetable prices are rising. Is it because of the floods all over India, or is it because of the roads to Sikkim? So these are issues that, because there is no opposition, I guess it falls on people like us who never go shopping to Lal Bazaar, but we can still raise these issues.
We do go sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. So we'll move on to the national news section now, I think. Is there any other local news?
I can't think. I mean, the only, as we are recording this on a Monday, the 5th of August, is it today? 5th of August?
I think so.
Is when the budget session, the SKM government's second term's first budget session is starting today. So interesting things to look forward to there, what the budget speech is going to be and all that. So
all right,
that'll be something to look forward to.
And now for the national news, we will start with what happened with Mr. Anurag
Thakur. But serves him right. Just like Chiring is a repeat offender when it comes to names and facts, seems. Anurag Thakur.
Yeah.
Anurag Singh Thakur, I think his full name. The MP from Mandi, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it Dharam? Yeah,
Mandi? Mandi to hamare Kangana hai ji.
Oh, Kangana hai. Yeah, but he's an MP from
somewhere.
Himachal. He's a glowing example of how distasteful and obnoxious political discourse has become in our country. He's a repeat offender when it comes to this kind of stuff. I'm getting to it. Yeah.
Sorry, before you get to Anurag Thakur, I forgot and I just remembered we had Mr. Sambit Patra in town.
Yes, he was.
Some days back.
Yeah, I think.
And what did he say? I don't know.
So it's very interesting, you know. I mean, let's take that digression. So the BJP government, NDA, let's call it, no, BJP government had come up with this thing a few years back that its leaders should go out across the country to spread the good word about their party and its policies. So when the budget comes out, they send out their people to state units, to the states, to explain to ignorant people like us about how brilliant governance and the budget is. And Mr. Sambit Patra was given the task of coming to Sikkim and explaining to the Sikkimis about how great this budget was. Which makes me think that this guy, Mr. Sambit, doctor.
Oh, doctor. Yeah.
He's a doctor. He's a, like, I think a doctor, like as a
medical doctor,
I think. But I have a feeling that he's being sidelined. He's their star, right?
Yeah,
he used to be in every studio. Again, like Anurag Thakur. Like now you've got Mathur in my head with Anurag. Like Anurag Thakur, like spreading drivel, saying the most horrendous things on live TV. And now he's being sent to Sikkim. I mean, Sikkim is not a BJP. Like Sikkim, BJP drew a blank out here. So unless they're sending him here because they need to boost the BJP morale and like tell them that, okay, even if you didn't vote for us, we'll send you our best guy. The other option, the other way I look at it is that maybe he's being given tier 5 cities to go with the message of the center. But I don't know what it is.
Did he stand for elections? He did, no? Yeah. Sambit Patra.
I mean, he's from Odisha.
I think he did, and what happened? Anyways,
I mean,
but
they
he
won.
has been.
I mean, BJP did very well in Odisha this time.
No.
Whatever they lost in UP, they made up from states like Odisha, right?
Yeah. I mean, Patra, but yeah. So it was. Do you remember? Do you know what he said in his?
Said the budget was brilliant. That the Prime Minister is the greatest leader the world has ever seen, and thanked the Prime Minister profusely for such a brilliant budget, which I always thought the Finance Minister tables and presents, which is Nirmala Sitharaman. She doesn't get any credit. So there was a whole lot of that.
But is it like this is not a regular feature, right? Like I think perhaps
Every
it was.
budget.
Oh no.
They do that.
What? Every budget a spokesperson is sent.
Yeah.
The BJP government.
The BJP does that.
Every year?
That
I don't think
present the
so.
budget. They do that. Yes.
I don't remember.
They started it a few years back.
Wait.
We did not get such big stars earlier, probably. So and then there was COVID also, right? So
I don't remember.
This is the thing. This is the thing. They send their
all right.
voice out.
Back to Anurag Thakur.
So you would think that Anurag Thakur, who was a minister in the previous government, is not a minister this time. A lot of us were thinking or hoping that maybe this is a sign that BJP is becoming more moderate. It's bringing it's scaling down its dribble, so to say. What made Anurag Thakur famous, apart from the ministries he held, was he is the person when the CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act, when those protests were going on, he is. I can't find enough adjectives, but he is the person who was in this speech who equated the protesters to traitors. Desh ke gaddaron ko goli maro salon ko in a public speech. It is the most vile thing I've heard in recent times, and he thought that was it. Although I think some UP leaders do viler stuff. But this guy tries to present himself as more suave and with the times. And then he outed himself. He was in parliament this time. And in the parliament, we know that the opposition, which has now Rahul Gandhi as the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, is making very strong statements, is launching big allegations against the government, and they are demanding the caste survey, right? They want the caste census to be carried out. Something that for some reason the BJP government, the BJP party, which was on board with it earlier, is now against the whole idea. Anyways, it's a caste census that the Congress has been demanding. It's part of their manifesto and all that. And then Anurag Thakur gets up in parliament and he says, people whose caste is not known are demanding a caste census. This is this is vile in every way, because do you realize it's targeted at Rahul Gandhi, whose father is the son of a Kashmiri Pandit mother and a Parsi father. And in that, his caste gets like, which caste does he belong to, right? And then you have Rahul Gandhi, who's the son of Rajiv Gandhi, who's like a Parsi and a Kashmiri Pandit and an Italian mother. This becomes the most inexcusably obnoxious thing to say. But he said it. They expunged it from the proceedings, which should tell us that how obnoxious this statement was. So he did that. And I think expunging it from the parliamentary proceedings is not enough. It should have been more roundly condemned because of the extremely poor taste it was in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything to the discussion. Right?
He should be expunged from the parliament.
Yeah, okay. When you become the speaker, you can do expunge. But then you'll probably end up expunging Anurag Mathur, who's probably this quiet guy from like UP MP who says like, what did I do? While Anurag Thakur continues to attend the session. So yeah, that is like it is not enough for Congress to condemn it. I think it should be everybody else who condemns it because of what was said and how it was allowed. So yeah, that's.
But like we as a country, as a people, we have come to this level that now, like listening to you, I'm like, yes, this was horrible, but
at that time, and
but it's no longer like, oh my God, at that level, because we are so, every day we hear of something or the other that is ridiculous.
It's being normalized, right? This kind of thing across the world. I think it's being normalized. I mean, come on, we have a prime minister who during not this election, the previous election campaign, which was something also I found it deeply disturbing. Remember when he was campaigning in West Bengal and he had this line, Didi o Didi, which creeped me out. Like it actually creeped me out.
Oh, like, Didi wala.
Yeah, and because it is like, it just creeped me out. I mean, that's normalized. I mean, it's the same person who said that we recognize rioters by their clothes. Okay, I get that. That's part of the whole RSS BJP line. But yeah, this Didi or Didi line, like is Anurag Thakur comes from there.
The landslides in Kerala, in Wayanad, and
please.
No. Would you say, like, because I mean it is Kerala, that it is receiving more attention than similar natural calamities in the northeast?
No, I don't think so. Because I mean, one, of course, we cannot compare disasters like this is big or that is big, right? National media does that. And national media does not cover Northeast so much because it's too far. They don't know this area too well. But the Kerala, I mean, come on, like upwards of 300 people dead in one disaster, like primarily one disaster. And I think it is still not getting enough traction. I don't think it's still being covered. It's kind of like what Sikkim, when it was hit by the Tista flood more recently, and earlier the earthquake. How when we watched national news coverage of these events, all of us were, if we were not cringing at how poorly those were being done, we were getting angry at how poorly informed each report was, right? So even with Kerala, I get that feeling, like how incomplete the coverage is. I mean, so many people have died, upwards of 300 people have died, and it's already losing steam actually when it comes to coverage. It's not this, what is happening in Sikkim, because we are here, what is happening in Sikkim and what has been happening in Kerala for the past decade, I would say. These are the headline events to prove what climate change can do, what global warming is wrecking on these areas. So even this landslide and flood is kind of like being explained to the change and rainfall patterns and the intensity of these things. And but it's been reduced to this thing of we gave them enough advance warning, right? I mean, that's what the headline for 2 days was, like Amit Shah saying that we've given them, we had given Kerala advance warning and still it failed to act, which is again insensitive but not surprising because this is how they play. Advance warning, we know, right, is that IMD warning of heavy rains.
Which we are like every day we receive one warning in Sikkim also, because it's been continuously raining. Right now also it started raining outside. It was bright and sunny for the first half and now it started raining. But the Kerala thing, what in the research that has, I didn't know that it is, according to one study by IIT Madras, I think M is Madras, is that it is one of the most vulnerable landslide prone states outside of the Himalayas. Kerala is the most.
And which is the most, which state has the highest propensity for landslides?
Apart from the Himalayan region?
No, in the Himalayan region.
What?
It's a quiz. I'm asking you.
I didn't understand.
Which state is the most landslide prone as per the same study.
Sikkim.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I didn't think Sikkim was acing that list as well.
Yeah.
57% of its
Area.
surface area is susceptible to landslides.
I thought even Uttarakhand would be quite bad, right? But then it's not in the.
Uttarakhand, some parts of Uttarakhand, right? Some other parts are quite stable.
Okay.
So, and it's the unstable part that the governments keep making worse with their hydel projects and their road projects with Uttarakhand. With Sikkim, it's like free for all. Like you go for the stable areas also and send some landslides. How can you be so unique? So Kerala, I think, is not getting, like we would think that it is getting a lot of airtime. I don't think it's getting enough, because I don't think lay casual readers of news or consumers of news are understanding what happened there.
It's like a mini cloudburst or something like that, no?
It's a flash flood, triggers landslides. It's a river finding its old channel, so like the water tears through a whole new territory, and because of urbanization, you got too many settlements that fall in the water's way. It is still remote, so all of those are there. All of the bridges get washed off, something that Sikkim is kind of used to. So our hearts go out for the people of Kerala, Wayanad. So
that's Rahul Gandhi's
constituency as well.
Right? So should we move on to international news?
I think before we do that, we should make a mention of the Supreme Court verdict on, because it is so misunderstood, this whole, so the Supreme Court recently gave a judgment on, which allows for having subcategories within the reserved categories of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes.
Oh, that's a new.
So that is interesting because it affects states like Sikkim.
What do you call it?
Creamy layer?
Yeah, creamy layer.
So exactly. So that is what it was initially reported at. It is not that.
Oh, it's not that.
It's not that. So so what the Supreme Court has done is you can't have creamy. We'll get to that discussion as well if time permits, on why scheduled caste and scheduled tribes cannot have the creamy layer concept, right, which exists in the OBC. But before that, the Supreme Court judgment, what it said is, what it recognized was that scheduled caste is not a homogeneous unit. There are several groups that come under the scheduled caste. Similarly, scheduled tribes is not a homogeneous unit. There are several tribes that come together under the scheduled tribes category. In Sikkim's case, for instance, there is the Bhutias, who are made up of 8 communities. They are Lepchas and now Limbus and Tamangs, who become scheduled tribes. When you have reservation for scheduled tribes, all these 4 groups have equal dips on that quota. Now the Supreme Court in its judgment said that the experience has been of the past 60 odd years, 70 years, the experience has been that certain groups within the scheduled caste and within the scheduled tribes have either not received enough benefits as matching the rest of the communities in their group, or have received too much. So it is fine for state governments to have subcategories within this. So to explain it in simple terms, the Sikkim government, when it has a scheduled tribe reservation, can break it down into smaller cells for Limbus, Tamangs, Bhutias and Lepchas. So let's say Sikkim has 10 seats in the scheduled tribe category. The Supreme Court now permits, earlier these 10, if all of them were taken by a Bhutia, by candidates from the Bhutia community, it was fine. If all of them were taken by a Lepcha community candidates, that was also fine. Now the Supreme Court is saying that the states can decide if within this also they want to have further subcategorization. That they'll say, okay, these 10 seats are for scheduled tribes, and out of these 10 seats, 2, because Lepchas have not had their fair share of this reservation, 2 will be further reserved for candidates from the Lepcha community. So this is subcategorization. It doesn't do creamy layer.
Which is Sikkim is already doing.
Sikkim is already doing. So the Supreme Court actually took a leaf out of Sikkim's practices, right? What the Supreme Court has given this judgment. Initially, there was so much confusion. Like you said, initially people thought it was creamy layer. That the Supreme Court is saying that in scheduled caste and scheduled tribes also have a creamy layer, which is not, I mean, Supreme Court can do whatever it wants, governments can do whatever they want, but if you go to the idea of reservation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and OBCs, you'll realize that you can't have a creamy layer concept, because scheduled caste and scheduled tribes are a socio-cultural arrangement. OBC is a socio-economic. So OBC reservations was to lift the
backward
economic
classes
economically, right? Give them a job and their lot will improve. So when you're doing that, you can have that creamy layer. So once you made it in life, like as in when you have money and your kids can go to good schools, you will not get that reservation. People of your community, still poor, will continue getting it. With scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, it's socio-cultural. And the best example for this is what an expert pointed out as the experience in UP, right? Is if you are a scheduled caste, say IAS officer, right? When you're an officer, you've made it in life, you'll get the best offices. Of course, you'll get your promotions, you'll get your jobs and everything else. But when you go back to your village, you will still be treated like a scheduled caste. Your children will still be treated as scheduled caste. You will not be able to go into an upper caste's house and be treated equally. So that socio-cultural denial will continue irrespective of whether you've hit the creamy layer bracket. Hence, we cannot have that concept, right, in the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and we can have that in OBC.
One question is that OBC is other backward classes, right? So it's classes. It has nothing to do with the community, but I mean, I would understand. But then in
certain communities that are identified as belonging to that.
So wouldn't that again be socio-cultural? Like
so it's their backwardness is not decided by their denial because of cultural practices. Their backwardness is because of their economic condition.
So like for example,
it's not like they're victims of systemic prejudice or denial.
So how, like for example, in Sikkim, it's the Rais are OBCs, right? So it's the Rais, the community. So so how is that?
So that in that again, because certain communities were identified as having been left out from the economic progress of the country or whatever, right? So for them, it is this OBC was always a tool provided for economic advancement by way of jobs or whatever, right? Having arrived in life.
So what I'm saying is, economic advancement is not just, I mean, economically backward. Rais are not the only economically backward. Like within the Rais, there'll be a certain section. Within the BLs, there'll be a certain. Within the other communities, there'll be a certain.
So in Sikkim, everybody is OBC, right? State OBC list, they put everybody, and then you have your creamy layer, and then there's some. Bihar started this, right? Extremely backward classes, like so. That is again a whole political thing. Ideologically, yes, there should be this OBC. Like, okay, you have OBC, so you can't say do away with it. Beyond everything else, there should be one for economically backward, which has got nothing to do with class, caste, community, right?
BPL and APL and
so there should be a separate category for this, because those cause also systemic denials, right? If I'm poor, my kids will not go to a school, go to a good school, irrespective of which caste I belong to, right? My economic condition denies them so much. So for them, there should be some grace marks in whatever, like jobs, employment, education, and everything. So yeah, that should be there. It is not there right now because it's again like a very gray vote bank, right? Politics. These are things decided by politics, and
So the new Supreme Court, Supreme Court, was it a verdict or was it a
judgment?
Judgment,
Yeah.
okay,
It's a verdict,
judgment.
yeah.
So that, so what do you think that will make any difference to Sikkim, because it's already kind of doing that?
No, Sikkim does not already do that Sikkim does it like there is no science behind it.
तो अब कहाँ से?
Sikkim,
Already there are so many categories.
no, it's not a new category. It's not a new category. There is a scheduled tribe, and within scheduled tribe you can have another reservation for someone who, let's say for example, now that requires science, which is wonderful for Sikkim, right? Sikkim was doing it like on gut feeling, let's say, right? But now they have to do it on the basis of science, because the court says you have to find out which communities have not benefited, right? Let's say that would mean that Sikkim now does a study that, okay, now even Limbu Tamangs have been tribals for nearly 2 decades, for 20 years.
Excuse me.
So Limbu Tamangs have been tribals for about 20 years, so they've been enjoying the reservation. They don't have seats, but they have reservation, right? Jobs and education and things like that. So there is enough empirical data available. So in the scheduled tribe, the government can now study. The Sikkim government can study, okay, scheduled tribes, we had this many openings in the last 20 years. Which communities benefited the most? Which communities benefited the least? Right? Whichever community benefited the least should then be given an earmarked reservation within the scheduled tribes. Now but the wonderful thing really, with the Supreme Court verdict is that caste census that Rahul Gandhi was talking about will now have to be conducted. Because how will you decide that a certain community did not get its share when you don't know what their population is?
Yeah.
So the census, what it does, just for people who might not know, the census counts, for instance, the number of scheduled castes in Sikkim or in the country, and it will count the number of scheduled tribes. It will not tell you how many of the individual tribes or the individual castes there are.
Okay.
So it will not tell you how many Bhutias there are, how many Lepchas there are, how many Limbus there are, and how many Tamangs there are. It will tell you how many scheduled tribes there are in Sikkim. Now, if this Supreme Court order is to be implemented, where you have to decide whether people were getting their due share or not, you need to have the population figures, which means the census will have to tell you that Lepchas constitute, 20% of the scheduled tribe population, but have received only 10% of the scheduled tribe reservations so far, which means that they have been losing out, right? So they have to be provided their proportional share, which is like, in a roundabout way, a very interesting development.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many, or whether all these aspects have been understood completely yet.
Okay.
It's still people are still trying to understand what's happening here. Like you said, initially everyone was thinking it's creamy layer, which on first instance, the creamy layer concept sounds good, right? If I have benefited from the scheduled tribe reservations, then my children should not, because I'm like an IS officer and all that kind of thing. But when you understand the socio-cultural reasons behind it, the denials, the centuries of denials, then it becomes a more complicated, complex issue.
All right.
Moving on
to the international section.
Yes.
We are going to talk about the Olympics and the controversy surrounding this Algerian athlete, Algerian sportsperson, boxer called Imane Khelif. Imane, I don't know. Yeah. Spelled Imane, but might be Imane Khelif. So she is a female boxer, but she's got, I think in the test she got, she's high
not
levels
the Olympics, not in the Olympics, in the previous, in a previous tournament, she tested for very high levels of testosterone. And that was by now a banned federation, the International Boxing Federation, right, which the IOA has de-recognized or something like that. So they disqualified her.
In that tournament.
Yeah, in that this tournament. Time she is contesting.
So what happened was she was in a match with this Karini or something like that. I think her name was this another boxer, and I think within From what I
45 seconds.
46 seconds, that lady, she got hit, her opponent got hit, and she gave up. She said, I cannot continue because that hit was like really too much, and it was not a female hit. She did not say directly, but she alluded to something like that. I have never gotten hit like that, is what that...
She was pretty clear about challenging the gender of her opponent.
So, but then she is, still contesting, right? The boxer.
The Algerian boxer. Yes, she went on to the next round and she's won the next round as well, and rightfully so. But yes, it is interesting that there's so much, this gathered a lot of traction. It just also exposes how little we understand. And if we have the outtakes of our previous round of trying to understand gender issues, it's also how little we understand gender and identity issues that the young seem to very
be aware of,
right? So if I think it is the more obnoxious voices that are dominating the social media, in the sense I see a lot of celebrities and things like that who have tweeted against the Algerian boxer, getting a lot of traction. People questioning the Olympic Association, people questioning how she is being allowed to box, all very ill-informed, because the facts are this. And this is something that my son explained to me this morning. She is a cis.
Cis is the normal, not normal, sorry, that's a bad word. It's heterosexual.
No, cis female, right?
Cis is just, you have the anatomy of a
she's, you identify with the gender that you were born in. So you were born, like when she was born, the family said, Mubarak ho, aapki beti hui hai, right? So the entire family, she was born a girl, and she continues to identify herself as a woman. That's cis, female. So she was born a girl. She continues to remain a girl and contest as a woman. That's the fact. A lot of people try to divert that by saying, the Olympic Association accepts the gender based on your passport. Whatever passport you are carrying, if it says male or female, that is good enough. The the Boxing Federation, they did a testosterone test, right? I don't think they do it with everyone, but when they are challenged or whatever, they do that. So the moment someone says that the Olympic Association accepts the gender that is recorded in the passport, you are implying that somehow the Algerian government or this boxer got a doctored passport or got a misrepresentative passport issued, and hence is contesting as a woman, even though she is a man, right? Which is not the truth. The fact is that she was born a girl, and she has contested in the past as in women's category, and she has lost to other women as well.
Yeah.
It is not even as if she's this freakishly, she's not a trans gender
but she
person,
has
right?
high
It's not
levels of testosterone.
which is,
because she has some condition.
doesn't matter condition. You can just have, what I liked what a lot of people were saying about testosterone being, you don't have control over it, right? Unless it is artificially injected, right? So you look at, I liked what they said about Kobe Bryant, right? He's so tall. So is that an unfair advantage? In basketball, it's an advantage, but is it unfair? Or we talk about swimmers, right? What was his name?
Phelps.
Who has got unnaturally long wingspan and huge hands, which is an unfair advantage? No, that's a biological advantage that he has, which is natural, right? So why should it be questioned when it comes to this Algerian boxer who has a high level of testosterone? We don't know whether it's always the case with her, because that changes, right? So a lot of people are going with just visual representation, right? I mean, she does look manly by a lot of standards, and people are just looking at that and saying, oh no, she is not a female, she's a, and that is unfair, which I find is so offensive. I mean, I can empathize with boxers who get beaten up in the ring. Like, I can feel sad for them. Like, you train for 4 years and then you get bashed up in 45 seconds. But think of this person. Think of this person who across at a global level is being accused of being a man when she's a woman, and she identifies as a woman.
So we had something like that some years back with the Indian athlete Duti Chand
who
also.
had a much more horrendous experience.
And Olympics,
in our own country.
And Olympics has always been, you know, this thing has always been a theme. I think in the Olympics, I think when the Duti Chand case happened, and before, later, afterwards, I had listened. There's other podcast, a really nice podcast about this also, and the history of this, what do you call it, I don't know, in the Olympics, like how earlier when Olympics, in the beginning of the Olympics, they used to physically check whether you're a male or female in the Olympics. Before the participating, they would, like, you'll have to strip, and there would be people who would check whether you're male and female. So, and that is when from there, and then some people protested against that, and then that changed, and then, it is evolving, the Olympics, what do you call it? A gender test. I don't know what test.
Yeah.
So that has been evolving, and then it has been challenged. With the Duti thing also, I don't remember very clearly, but in the Olympics, she had challenged, and there was a lot of, I don't know if it resulted in any changes, but it had been brought up.
But it at least brought the issue into conversation in a country like ours.
Because Duti Chand is also similar, no? She looks manly, but she also was born a girl, and she
continues
she had high levels of testosterone or whatever. She also had a similar, if not the same condition, a similar, a case as Imane Khelif. So, so the Olympics, I don't know. I mean, this is confusing, like, for people, especially the older generation, I think, like me, even I don't completely understand these things, and you have to be so careful nowadays about, the kind of...
You have to, you have to be careful. I think I think we make the mistake when we think that we have to be careful. We have to be sensitive.
No, sensitive.
And respectful.
The sensitive, you have to be careful to be sensitive, no.
Yeah.
So that is, you are being careful because you are sensitive, whatever. So,
see, I can... In this case, see, again, like, it's like that whole passport business, right? With Imane, there is no confusion as far as the information goes, right? She is a woman, and that's it. I can understand that there is a whole lot of confusion when we're talking about transitioned females or transitioned males, right? That becomes like a bit complicated, complex, and all that. So we cannot bring those confusions into this particular case, because in this particular case, it's established that she's a woman, and it is wrong for people to continue questioning that or challenging that. So in that sense, I feel it's and Duti Chand gave a statement, I think, right?
Yeah,
or issued a
I think she
Twitter
has
comment.
commented, but I don't know exactly what she said.
In her support, I'm sure, as in kind of holding up the mirror to people who just are so quick on the draw when it comes to these issues.
So, moving on.
Yes.
What is happening with the Israel,
Israel-Hamas thing?
Hamas thing,
Yeah. It's a crazy one. I mean, again, like, so Israel assassinated Hamas chief, political wings chief.
Leader.
Right?
Ismail Haniyeh.
Yeah. Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated while he was in Iran to attend the swearing in of the new president. That itself is so common. I mean, like, Israel is accused of. Israel has not admitted to having done it, but so it kind of pushes the prospects of peace a lot. This person was the lead negotiator to end hostilities between Hamas and Israel, and in talks that were initiated by USA, right? So he's seen as a moderate face. forget about his politics, forget about him being even moderate. He is the chief negotiator. What happens when you kill the chief negotiator? Negotiations fall through, right? Who benefits the most if Israel and Hamas don't come to an agreement on a ceasefire? I don't know. I think it's only Netanyahu, because he continues to remain in office, and all the questions that have been raised on his conduct, not related to this war. I mean, that's a separate set of war crimes that will have to be dealt later. But his conduct as the president of Israel before the current situation erupted, that is being challenged and that is being contested in courts and all that, right? But this continuing war, he staves off that inquiry or questioning in the public domain. So there is you cannot even begin to try and understand what must have justified this attack, because it's in Iran. You've triggered Iran, it has to respond because it's in their land, their guest was killed. You kill the most moderate face of Hamas, then you're leaving only the more extreme mindsets to control that group even more. It's such a obvious attempt at keeping the hostilities more severe and on boil. So yeah, I mean, as things stand, it's Palestine. It's Palestinians who are suffering the most, right? Gaza is. It's just unfair, the scale of misery being thrown on them, and then incidents like this happen, which just continue the violence being sent down.
Yeah.
So that's how I see what happened there.
I think, we are coming towards the end of the podcast, and before we close, I was waiting for the right moment to plug a product, but I just couldn't,
Publication.
A publication. I just couldn't come up. So before we end, we would like to talk about in the land of the lama. In the land of the lama. Sorry.
Yes. you
land
almost gave away our punchline.
I know. So this is a comic book by Pema Wangchuk. Sikkim Coast Pema Wangchuk, and Simon Hamoret. I think that's how he pronounces. He's a French illustrator, graphic artist, and they have both worked together, collaborated on this wonderful comic in the land of the Lama, which is based, in Sikkim, as in the story is based in Sikkim. So it's available in Rachna Books. You can please go there and pick one for yourself, for your children, for your nieces, nephews. And it's of course, we can't talk about the story. We won't want to give it away. But
it's a very short one.
All I can say is, one little bit of
I don't know whether nephews and nieces will be so excited.
So the cover says, the starring Jasprit Singh, Kaptan Singh and Sange. And it is about Babaji.
He features, yes.
He features in it. He is one of the central themes, let's say, if not a character. But yeah, so that's all we can give away right now. So would you like to say something about the comic? I mean, you have worked on it. How was your experience?
The experience was wonderful to collaborate with Simon. So that was an experience. He was here on a fellowship for a month and a half, living at Rachna, Cafe Fiction, what is it called? Bookman's B&B at Rachna Books. So we just happened to meet and exchanging stories over one dinner. We just said, okay, let's give it a shot. So this is going to be a series, right? So we are calling it we're calling it Sikkim Stories. So the idea is to pick up a few characters, some of whom are introduced in this first edition, and follow their lives and their experiences, and through that tell as many stories about Sikkim, as many Sikkim experiences as possible, and see if something interesting can come out of that. So it's a continuing project. Yeah, and of course, if people buy more copies, it just gives us more reason to continue with, to come up with volume 2.
This is volume 1.
Yeah.
So and you are working on. You are definitely working on a.
Yes, we are working on continuing the stories. At least a few more episodes. If we can't find any interest, any big publishers. Till then, this is published by Rasna Books, and you can go, I think, online also and order it. So
please
do let us know what you think of this. What do you think of our podcast?
And look forward to more of this as well. Sikkim stories.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. See you next week. Bye.